reasons why I like to use the Project Management Institute's 7-domain model for Agile is PMI incorporates lean practices into Agile where it makes sense. So we're going to talk for just a couple of minutes about lean itself, and throughout the course we'll be making references to various lean techniques. Lean product development actually started with manufacturing. The idea was to provide more efficiency and more throughput and better quality. When it comes to lean product development principles, we like to use visual management tools to enhance transparency. We want to identify customer-defined value, and we want to build into the processes learning and continuous improvement. The core concepts of lean are eliminate waste, empower the team, deliver fast, optimize the whole, build quality in, defer decisions. And when we say defer decisions, one of the keys of Agile is we like to say that we try to hold off on making decisions into the latest responsible moment. That doesn't mean we're procrastinating. What that means is we know things are going to change, so we want to hold off on making decisions until we absolutely have to, so we don't have to do rework later. Amplifying learning. And as by now I'm sure you can tell that this really does work hand in hand with a lot of Agile principles. One of the big things in lean is to eliminate waste. In lean we talk about the 7 waste or MUDA. The 7 waste are partially done work, and again that goes back to having work in progress longer than it needs to be. We don't want to multitask, we want to emphasize throughput. Adding extra processes just because. Adding extra features or gold plating, in other words, trying to give the client things they haven't asked for. Basically, the client determines what's important to them, we don't. Multitasking, again, task switching. Waiting or bottlenecks. Motion, which is many handoffs, we try to minimize handoffs, and defects. Kanban. Kanban was initially conceived as a way of enhancing inventory control. Basically, Kanban means visual signs or cards. What they did in manufacturing was whenever you would pick up a part, it would have a card on it that was either green or red, and if it was a red card, it told the people in supply it was time to reorder. So it was a way of minimizing excess inventory. Kanban, again, focuses on maximizing throughput. It tries to, the whole idea of lean is to emphasize throughput and to have maximization of throughput as opposed to optimization of machines. Because when you start doing quote-unquote optimal runs on machines, what happens is you create bottlenecks. And one of the good things about lean is that you can it'll work with many different systems. So it's easy to incorporate the benefits of lean into Agile. And when we talk about Kanban, one of the ways we implement it in an Agile environment is with Kanban boards. And we're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. Kanban tends to be more effective when you have flexibility in determining your backlog priorities. The focus in Kanban is on continuous delivery of completed deliverables and not beginning new work until prior work has been completed. In other words, we want to limit the work in progress. We want to enhance productivity and quality. Again, we find that if you minimize WIP or work in progress, you also get the benefit of enhanced productivity and quality. We want to increase efficiency by focusing on value add and eliminating non-value add activities. There's a focus on the team member. We want to limit WIP so we can focus on completing the work. We want the ability to handle variability of workload where predicting workload is difficult. We want to have reduction of waste through transparency of processes, thereby allowing people to focus on the cause of that waste. And as you can see, all of these items that work in Kanban also tends to fit well in an Agile environment. Some of the defining principles of Kanban: we start with the current state. We agree to pursue incremental or evolutionary change. In Kanban is not a framework that replaces what you have. Kanban basically respects the current processes, roles, responsibilities, and titles, and it encourages leadership at all levels. Again, that works really well with high-performing teams. Some of the core properties of Kanban: we visualize the workflow, we limit work in progress, we manage the flow, we have explicit process policies, we have feedback loops, and we want to have collaboration. One of the ways that Kanban can be used to make your Agile team more efficient is that you can use it to minimize work in progress. As you can see by the slide here, what we're doing is we have our backlog. And let me just take a step back. When we talk about a Kanban board, what we typically have in a Kanban board is our backlog, the work we have in progress, maybe if we have multiple stages, what those stages are, and the work that's been done. And as a result, we have a lot of transparency, so everybody can tell at a glance how things are moving through the iteration. One of the things we can do with this board is we can use it to limit work in progress. So as you can see in this particular case, we have the backlog of items we're going to work on. We say explicitly we can't be working on more than 4 at any given time. So once we have 4 items that we're going to start working on, we don't work on anything else until something moves from selected to develop. When we go to develop, we only allow 3 items there. When we go to acceptance, we only allow 2. And what this does is it encourages throughput versus having everybody start on everything and as a result ending up without a whole lot of completion. So we don't want a bunch of bumblebees going from flower to flower. We want to have throughput. We want to have things done. One of the other things about Kanban is we can use it to put together a flow chart where we can show where things stand using what's called a cumulative flow chart. As you can see here, we've got our total, we've got work in progress, and we've got completed. And one of the rules that we employ with the cumulative flow chart is called Little's Law. And Little's Law says the duration of a queue is proportional to its size. And if you look at this chart, as you can see, the yellow is the work in progress. We want to keep that small. The only one that we want to see really grow is the green, which is the work that's completed. Okay? So that's a visual way of allowing us to just at a glance get a feel for the work in progress. As we noted a minute ago, we can use a Kanban board to limit work in progress, and we can use a cumulative flow chart to give us an overall view of how the project is going. So why is it useful? Well, one of the things that Little's Law points out to us is as a particular part of that flow chart grows, it means we've got more, it means the duration of that activity is going to increase. So as we look here, we've got gray at the top, which is our backlog. We've got yellow in the middle, which is our work in progress. We have green at the bottom. As you can see here, our work in progress is growing. That's not good. That means we've got too much work in progress, and we probably need to start, dealing with that either through work in progress limits or some other way. Also, when you look at a cumulative flow chart like this, you can see that we're getting increasing requirements being thrown at us, and we probably want to think about what's going on here. So again, like all metrics, it's not saying good or bad, it's just saying, you need to check into this. Scrum BAM. Scrum BAM is a hybrid framework used to integrate Kanban into Scrum and into Agile environments. The work is organized into small sprints or scrums. We use Kanban boards to visualize and monitor work. We have an emphasis on minimizing work in progress. We have daily meetings, again, our daily stand-up. We have planning triggers that we use to alert the team when it's time to plan for the next sprint or scrum. Usually the trigger there is our work in progress is pretty much eliminated, which means we're pretty much done. And again, in Scrum BAM, we like all Kanban implementations, we work within the original system. And we can have this hybrid of Scrum and Kanban. The same thing works with XP and Kanban. Crystal methodologies. We're kind of switching gears here. One of the things we talk about in Agile is we are going to value getting work done over documentation. And crystal methodology is a way of kind of determining just how heavy the methodology should be. And again, when I talk about a heavy methodology versus a light methodology, I'm talking about the rigor of the reporting. In a heavy methodology, there would be a lot of reporting. In a light methodology, we would keep it to a minimum. Crystal gives us a framework of determining how heavy our methodology should be. Okay? So it acknowledges that each project's policies, practices, and processes should be tailored to meet the needs of the project. The core values we consider with Crystal methodology is people, interaction, community, skills, talents, and communications. Some of the common properties that you see where we use Crystal to help us tailor. We have frequent delivery usually. We have reflective improvement. In other words, retrospectives. We look for close/osmotic communication between the team members themselves and the team and the client. We look for personal safety. We look for a focus on what we're trying to accomplish. We want easy access to the experts so the team and the client speak a lot. And we want a technical, especially if we're using something like XP, we want a technical infrastructure that includes automated testing, configuration management, and frequent integration. So how does Crystal work? Crystal basically uses a color code that goes from crystal clear to crystal magenta. And what Crystal looks at are life, essentialness, how much discretion I have, how much comfort I have, and how large is the team. In other words, when we talk about life, what we're saying is that if this iteration fails or if this product fails, is somebody going to die? Okay? When we talk about how essential it is, we mean if this project fails, is the organization going to go out of business? When we talk about discretionary, we mean just how much discretion do the team members have on doing their jobs? Are we doing a project that's in a highly regulated environment, that's highly regulated by the government, or can we pretty much do it how we want to do it? When it comes to comfort, we talk about how uncomfortable are people going to be if the project fails? Okay, is it going to be like, oh, well, we learned something, or are people going to get fired? When we talk about team size, it's as you would expect. It's how large the team is. So as you can see, at crystal clear, nobody's going to die. Okay, the company's not going to get under. We've got a lot of discretion. Typically, the larger the number, the more important something is. There's a lot of comfort, and the team size is small. Okay, so if we're in an environment of crystal clear, we don't really need a very heavy methodology. We can get by with minimal documentation. As you can see, as we go from clear to yellow to orange to red to magenta, these factors become a lot more important. And as you can see at magenta, people are going to die. The company's going to go out of business. There's not a heck of a lot of discretion allowed. it's going to be very uncomfortable if there's failure and we've got a really large team. This is an enterprise level situation, so we're going to need a more rigorous or more heavy reporting methodology. And we're going to talk a little later about scaled Agile, which is scaling Agile up at the enterprise level. And the more you scale it, the larger your team becomes, which means you're going to need a heavier methodology to keep track of all the moving parts. Speaking of scaling frameworks, Agile scaling is used to adapt the Agile tools and techniques to large projects. As Agile has become more mainstream, scaling is becoming more important. Some of the more typical Agile scaling tools and techniques are Scrum of Scrums, Scaled Agile Framework, large-scale Scrum, Enterprise Scrum, and Disciplined Agile. We've already talked about Scrum of Scrums, which is just a matter of having multiple teams where the team representatives meet about once a week and keep each other in the loop. Scrum of Scrums is also called Meta Scrum. It's useful for larger projects. It's used when 2 or more teams need to coordinate their work. A representative for each team may meet weekly. They might meet a couple times a week depending on how interdependent they are. Each representative reports the completed work, the next set of work, any impediments they have, and any potential upcoming impediments. As I'd mentioned earlier, very large projects with many Scrum teams might actually take it up another level to Scrum of Scrums, or SOS. And this is just a little slide that kind of gives you a feel of how these work. So the Scrum of Scrums, each team sends a representative. If we are at the point where there are many teams, we might have a Scrum of Scrums, where each Scrum of Scrums sends a representative. Scaled Agile Framework, also called SAFe. It focuses on providing a knowledge base of patterns for scaling development projects across the entire enterprise. The focus is on detailing practices, roles, and activities at the portfolio, program, and team level, with an enterprise emphasis on value streams and providing value to the client. As you can imagine, when we're doing enterprise level projects, we're going to need a much heavier methodology. When they talk about portfolio, program, and team level, basically what they mean is at the portfolio level, it's the enterprise level decisions being made about what projects or programs we're going to do. Programs speak about where there's a lot of coordination among projects. And of course, the team level is the project level. Some of the principles of SAFe, again, it's enterprise level, so we take an economic viewpoint. We apply more systems thinking. Again, we're going to have more rigor in our reporting. We assume change and we preserve our options. We do incremental builds with fast integrated learning cycles. We use milestones based on objective evaluation of the working systems. Again, we're going to limit our work in progress. We use cadence and synchronize across cross-domain planning. When we talk about cadence, we talk about the length of the iterations. We try to keep it the same. We want to harness the motivation of knowledge workers. Again, it's an empirical process. And we want to decentralize decision-making as much as possible. Again, with SAFe, what we're trying to do is get the best of both worlds. We're trying to employ the rigor we need in the heavy methodology so we can look at things from a total organization, our enterprise perspective, while still unleashing the power of Agile practices at the team level. Large-scale Scrum, also called LESS. It's a framework for organizing many developmental teams towards a common goal using Scrum tools. The idea is to retain as many Scrum principles as possible in a scaled environment. The similarities between LESS and Scrum, or LESS and bottom line XP for that matter, We have a single product backlog. We have a common definition of done for all the teams. We have a single potentially shippable product increment at the end of each sprint. We have a single product owner. We have cross-functional teams, and we have a single sprint. In other words, we've got multiple Agile teams working, but they're working together to produce a product at the end of each sprint or Scrum. Some techniques that are added to Agile itself are Scrum. Sprint planning is formally divided into the parts, the what and the how. We have cross-team coordination because they're working on a unified product. We have cross-team refinement. We have a single retrospective at the end of each sprint that all the teams go to. Again, there's a lot of interaction between the teams here. And when we have our retrospective or our lessons learned at the end of the iteration, we want to gather all the team together and get their input. We use the following to extend the Scrum concepts without losing the Scrum essence: systems thinking, a whole product focus, and of course transparency, communication among the teams. Enterprise Scrum is a framework designed to apply Scrum at a more holistic organizational level as opposed to single teams. Organizational leaders are expected to extend Scrum across all aspects of the organization. We modify Scrum techniques to apply easily to the various organizational needs. We scale Scrum with supplemental techniques as required, and we promote disruptive innovation. In other words, like all Agile, we know things are going to change. We don't get upset about things changing. We want to have the benefits of disruptive change. Disciplined Agile, DA, it's a framework for offering a balance between the narrow focus of Scrum and the prescriptive detail of Agile UP by blending Agile techniques as needed to put people first, by defining roles and organizational elements, promoting constant learning and encouraging collaboration, and full delivery life cycles to address fit-for-purpose needs. Again, when we come to these various scaled Agile techniques, what we're trying to do is put a little method to the madness. As Crystal methodologies show, the larger the organization impact, the more rigor we need to put on our methodology's heaviness while still maintaining the benefits that we get from Agile frameworks.